All right, so people with low neuroticism versus people with higher neuroticism. So, made an interesting, possible discovery or, insight on why people with high neuroticism may enjoy talking about their feelings more versus people who are lower in neuroticisms who enjoy who enjoy talking about their feelings less. So the reason that I think the people with who are lower in neuroticism don't need to talk about or don't enjoy talking about their feelings as much is because they're naturally more difficult to jostle. So they can, before something registers, like an annoyance registers in them as sufficiently annoying to them to the point where they want to lash out and say something about it. That point takes place much further down the line, as opposed to a person who's high in neuroticism, where the person who's high in neuroticism, if something jostles them, they sort of want to react and they want to talk about it and they want to describe it. Otherwise, they stay in a neurotic state. So the person who's lower in neuroticism, it takes longer to jostle them. So naturally, on the one hand, that makes them less anxious in a lot of circumstances, in a lot of ways. But when it comes to talking about their feelings, because they have the strength of not being as irritable about things, they exercise that ability less. They exercise the ability to talk about their feelings less. So they're not as well practiced in talking about their feelings. So they have more anxiety when they finally do break and reach that point of needing to express themselves. So for them, it may appear as, well, talking about things only makes things worse because they sort of live in a more mellow state the majority of the time, and so it means that they rely on the skill of talking about their feelings less because they feel less inclined to need to have that mode of expression. So what's interesting is the difference where, some people think that talking about their feelings only makes things worse versus where some people think that talking about their feelings makes them feel better. As I think it has to do with, when you're talking about people who are lower in neuroticism, you're more likely to find the ones who feel like talking about their feelings only makes things worse. And, because of the points I previously stated. And then along the people with high neuroticism, it makes them feel better because they have a smaller container available to them for annoyance. So they have to talk about things to get them off their chest more quickly because they kind of have to. It kind of less irritates them more. So it's like the skill to verbally express your feelings is their way of coping with the situation. Whereas with the people who are less neurotic, they don't need, or they don't they're less disposed to developing that facility because they are naturally less bothered by things. And then on the downside of that is they become less practiced in emotional expression. And so if they were to express themselves, they have less facility because they've felt less of a need to practice it. So they're going to be less skilled at this, or less confident at it, at the very least. So anyhow, I just wanted to record this because I think it kind of gives me some insight into why certain people have the difference that seems to exist here, and certain attitudes. But yeah, I think fundamentally, I think learning how to be self-aware and express yourself is going to be beneficial if you can. If you are more of a low in neuroticism person, but it might be more difficult to until the skill is well developed. So it's it's not going to feel like it's working real well when it's something that's sort of like has become kind of scary, because because the strength where the place where you're used to feeling strong is not being bothered by anything. And so until you are bothered by something, you don't want to reveal any annoyance. But then when there is annoyance, but the person is not as used to dealing with the annoyance, then they might have to begin to create sort of a pressure chamber where the person with low neuroticism ends up carrying this big sort of compressed ball of resentments, because these and whatever traumas and unspoken feelings and things that weren't convenient to say, so they weren't said. So that might create sort of a pressurized part of that person, where normally under normal circumstances those things wouldn't bother them, but then if enough goes wrong in their life, that whole pressure chamber kind of might explode all at once. And so it might feel like complete dissolution. So then at that point, talking about things just feels like a chaotic mess, because it's all been pushed down into a very tight confinement, because it wasn't seen as necessary to talk about those things, because it's to the person's conscious awareness, part of their awareness, they always felt kind of calm, relatively happy, and at peace until but things still kind of end up in that chamber until they're fully expressed, because the brain is sort of always recording different things. Anyhow, so I think I illustrated my point here pretty well, so I'll leave it.